Hello, welcome back to the channel. Recently, I saw a Bleacher Report posted on Instagram and on their own website and app, of course, talking about great Hall of Fame player comparisons for players aged 25 or younger. I thought some of the comparisons were not very good. A couple of them made sense, but for the majority, they were just really out there. Trae Young being compared to Steve Nash, for example, with a green light just doesn't really make any sense. Just because they both get assists doesn't mean they're similar at all in any way play style. Nash was a guy that didn't shoot very often. I understand why they were trying to say that's why he's a player with a green light, Trae Young, in that sense, but it just doesn't make any sense when you talk Nash as a two-time MVP. I understand it had to be a Hall of Fame comparison, but it doesn't make any sense for a guy like Trae Young who chucks up a lot of threes, shoots a low percentage, and is known generally as someone who's pretty inefficient overall to be compared to such an efficient shooter like Steve Nash, who I still believe would be close to 50, 40, 90 if he was to shoot more. Then there were some other comparisons, like the Charles Barkley to Zion Williamson, saying that Zion's just a more athletic version of Charles. I think that's a great comparison. They're both undersized power forwards, able to run the floor, carry the ball, set some plays, and just uber athletic, able to rim run at will. Then we had some comparisons of Evan Mobley to Kevin Garnett, but saying basically that Mobley doesn't have a voice. He's a less vocal Kevin Garnett. I don't really think that's the case. Mobley's definitely more soft spoken than Garnett. However, they're both great defensive players, but that's kind of where it stops right there. Garnett, a much better offensive weapon, and just because they're both long power forwards that can play defense doesn't mean they're the same player. Garnett obviously at a much higher impact. We'll have to see where Mobley goes, where Garnett also started on a team that was kind of struggling. I know the Cavs are in a playoff spot right now and are definitely playoff contenders every single year, but I just really don't see that being the same situation. Mobley seems to me to be of a little bit different of a mold than Garnett. However, I do see where they're coming from, and I could see an argument for that. Just not me personally going along with that. I saw Tatum being compared to Paul Pierce. It's a fine comparison. It seems like a cop out, but it really is the right choice. Paul Pierce and Jason Tatum, not the fastest guys around, some sneaky athleticism. Tatum, if you really pay attention to his game, is a guy that likes to shoot over people as opposed to beating them off the dribble. He does have a few more moves than Paul would have used, but however, I still do really think that's a strong comparison. I'll have to agree with that one. Next, they put up the Luka Doncic being Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant. For one, I can understand some of the Magic similarities, considering Magic was a big guard who was able to get everybody involved with his playmaking. However, Magic was someone that utilized the skyhook in a post game like no other. Luka Doncic goes to the post sometimes against smaller defenders and can hit a fade. However, he really does look for step back threes, which is nowhere similar to Magic's game. The Kobe comparison makes no sense at all. Kobe was a guy that shot a lot of mid ranges, really liked to get into the paint when he could, and he definitely shot the ball at will, which is why I think they try to compare Luka to Kobe. The play styles are not similar. Kobe's very athletic. Magic, I think, is even more athletic than what Luka is currently, and it doesn't make much sense to me to put two of them together to try to make a player. If you're looking at Luka Doncic, he really does have a Euro style play, and neither of those guys exhibited that. They were really flashy. Luka can be at times, but he really is working at a much slower, methodical pace than the upbeat pace of a Kobe Bryant. Kobe was really a similar player to Shea. I think Shea's game resembles a lot of what Kobe did, and I really do think that's the guy closest to Kobe in the league right now. A lot of people think that Devin Booker is. Devin Booker just doesn't quite have that defensive edge for me. I think Shea has a little bit more of the tools, and he's a little bit more in the mold of Kobe as well, being a little bit longer of a player than what Booker is. Booker obviously does model his game after Kobe, and there's some strong similarities there. I just think Shea resembles Kobe a little bit more. They had Shea compared to Clyde Drexler, and I really don't understand the comparison. Clyde was an uber athletic guy, loved to get to the rim. He was known for shooting a little bit too much from three, even at a lower percentage, and Shea's a guy that doesn't shoot threes at all. Shea is really similar to Kobe Bryant, And I don't see the Clyde comparison at all. Just because they're both shooting guards doesn't mean that you should compare them because they're a guy that's kind of slept on for the era. Clyde obviously made it to the finals in '92 with the Trailblazers, having Terry Porter, Kevin Duckworth, Jerome Kersey at his side. But I don't think that those players are very similar at all. I think it's a bad comparison, and I think that Clyde needs to be given another player in the league in order to be compared to him than Shea. The play styles are too different for me to agree. I'll put a link below to the original list that I saw from Bleacher Report's Top 25. Those were the main ones that I wanted to talk about. I think there were a few cop-outs there. We had Ant compared to Dwayne Wade. I'm not seeing that. Dwayne Wade was a guy that loved to get to the free throw line really fast, really quick. Not saying Ant can't show that bit of, slashing ability that Dwayne Wade had, but I really do think Ant is more like a Vince Carter, who isn't in the Hall of Fame, so I understand why they couldn't put it there, but you have to believe he's going to be there within the next few years. Vince, obviously an 8-time All-Star, great player in the league, only retired a couple of years ago, and the only player to be part of 4 decades in the league. So let's get into it. The guys coming up, the 2022 draft class, and we're going to see where they are today. Where I think that they should be compared to players of the past. I'm not going to use only Hall of Fame comparisons because I'm not going to be able to get those comparisons for some of these guys, as I think that their games aren't going to translate to a Hall of Fame player-like style, and it might be a very low percentage of similarities that I'm trying to compare between two players. For example, we have Jabari Smith Jr., which will be the number 2 pick that I go over. I'm not as high on him as most people are. There's definitely some upside there, but we'll get into that a bit later. So the thing that I've noticed with a lot of NBA players today is a lot of people refer to them having a bag, so to speak, and that's really what seems to be a little bit more important, that trying to create shots, and they're really good at completing their moves, getting to their spot, and then just not finishing the play. So Paolo, a guy just won Rookie of the Year. Great upside there. However, his rebounding probably could have been a little bit better. I think it was just under 7 a game. His passing was okay at about 4 assists a game. However, he did commit a few turnovers that could have been, prevented. And his field goal percentage was right around 43% for a 4, which is not really what you like to see. His 3-point percentage, I believe around February, he didn't hit a 3 for the entire month or something ridiculous like that. His player comparison I'm going to go with, it was Wayman Tisdale in the 1991 NBA season. However, some people don't know Wayman Tisdale, so I'll also take Tom Chambers. Tom Chambers was an ultra-athletic, sneaky athletic because he was, of course, a 6'10 power forward. You look at the guy at first with the blonde hair, and he doesn't look like the type of guy that's going to dominate athletically. However, he could. He did struggle as well with the jump shot starting off in the career. Started to get a mid-range going and even a bit of a 3 towards the end. And I'm kind of seeing that's what's happening with Paolo. Both not known as terrific defenders. However, they can get the job done when needed. Able to guard different positions. Kind of the 3 to the 5 depending on the matchup. And I definitely see some strong similarities in their game. Able to get the rim when they want. Able to score in the post. And able to put up some buckets. And not at the greatest percentage or efficiencies. So, Jabari Smith Jr., who I really see, he's a long guy at PF, is able to shoot. Once again, lots of length, not a lot of defense, doesn't like to pass the ball, and is very inefficient. The guy that I see right now at this current moment, and where it seems like he's going to be going, is Yi Zhanlian, a guy that can perform outside of the NBA, such as Summer League, like Jabari Smith Jr. just did. He didn't work out against a chair like Yi Zhanlian did, apparently. However, I really do see a lot of comparisons there. Zhanlian, a long guy from China, lied about his age at the time. We don't need to get in that right now. But 2 of their games, very similar, inefficient, don't find the open man, and the defense just isn't really right there. Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be on the Houston Rockets, who picked up a lot of guys in the offseason, and we'll see how he fits with Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and some of the new additions like Jock Longdale along his side. I do think that he isn't destined for greatness in the current situation, maybe a different team, Maybe the new teammates can help him out, but right now he just seems like an inefficient shooter with some length that I don't really get a whole lot more, and he leaves me kind of lukewarm. Next, we have the fourth pick in the 2022 NBA draft, and the third player we can talk about. I did mention at the top, but Chet Holmgren obviously has not played just yet, so we have to go on to the fourth pick, that being Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray is a guy that is a coach's dream, was known as the most coachable or teachable player in the 2022 draft coming in, and he's been just that. He's great to space the floor, performed well in the playoffs, and was on a great Sacramento Kings team last season. So there's great hope that he could perform well in the sophomore season, as he was just too good in Summer League this year past. I think a great comparison for him would be Sam Perkins. Sam Perkins was a guy that could really shoot the ball at the 4. He played the 5 later on and was a solid post defender. I think Keegan Murray can develop into a good defender as time goes on, where he is such a coachable player. And I think their play styles are really similar. If you think that this is a little bit of a downgrade, I suggest that you look into Sam Perkins, because Perkins was a guy that was definitely in the wrong era. If he played today, he would really be a great starter on probably a great team. Perkins was able to shoot the ball from pretty well anywhere on the floor, had a little touch of a post game, and really had a high basketball IQ, just like I feel about Keegan Murray. Next, we have the fifth pick in the 2022 NBA draft, and that was Jaden Ivey. A lot of comparisons right off the bat before he even entered the NBA to Ja Morant. I do believe that's a great comparison. I think it is very true. He's just a bigger bodied Ja Morant. However, I don't want to use any current NBA players, just to give some love and respect to the guys that are currently retired or no longer in the league. And let's just compare him to Rodney Stuckey. If you don't know Rodney Stuckey, he was a guy that didn't really have a true position. He was stuck between shooting guard and point guard, and is more famously known as the guy that looks like 50 Cent the most in the league. Rodney Stuckey had a game where he was a great slasher, could occasionally be a great mid-range shooter, and struggled to shoot the 3-ball. That's how I feel about Jaden Ivey. Oddly enough, they both played on the Detroit Pistons. I'm not using this as a cop-out. I just think that their play styles are very similar, and I think that how they see the game is also very similar. So we'll see if Jaden Ivey can get out of that Rodney Stuckey mold, but that's where I feel like he is right now at the moment on the Detroit Pistons. Next, we have Benedict Mathurin. On the Indiana Pacers, of course, he can put up buckets in short time. He's a very microwave, off-the-bench type player for me. So I got to compare him to Ricky Parrish, a former 6th man of the year in his own, could put up 20 points on any given night off the bench. And this is exactly how I feel about Benedict Mathurin. Mathurin, of course, has a much longer wingspan, a lot of length there, some great similarities in his game to Ricky Parrish, who was great on the Milwaukee Bucks and the Seattle Supersonics, and just playing got it done wherever he went. He could have been a starter, just like how I feel about Mathurin could definitely become a starter, but I feel like his talents are much better suited off the bench. When you've got a guy like that being a spark plug coming in, you can really run a whole different offense to throw another team completely off course. Shaedon Sharpe's the next guy we're going to talk about, and I feel like he has been solid in pockets of time, but overall hasn't been that consistent. The guy that I think that comes to mind at first is Gerald Henderson. Junior, of course, not senior, that played with the Celtics in the neck brace. Gerald Henderson Jr., of course, very, very athletic, able to get through the paint for the Charlotte Bobcats more notably, and had an NBA career that was sadly cut short. But I do think Shaedon Sharpe shows a lot of signs of being similar to Gerald Henderson. They both have a solid pull-up game, are able to get to the rim, put in buckets at will, and the defensive side of things is a bit of a question mark. You don't know what you're going to get on any given night. Some nights you might get a lockdown defender, and other nights you might be a guy that's playing a lot of matador defense. That's exactly what I'm seeing out of Shaedon Sharpe. Let's hope he can also turn it around just like some of the other guys on this list, and maybe he can get out of his situation in Portland, or maybe once Damian Lillard potentially gets traded, that might open up some new opportunities for him next to Anthony Simons. So the next one I've got is a bit of an odd comparison. I've got Dyson Daniels, a combo guard for the New Orleans Pelicans. I think his game is the most similar to Iman Shumpert. Now, let me explain before you just completely write off that similarity for me. Iman Shumpert was the guy that struggled shooting the ball, but showed some signs of it. Was a great defender early on, and showed a lot of burst with the New York Knicks. I think Dyson Daniels is able to be that guy for the New Orleans Pelicans, shows a lot of length, and is able to be a little bit big of a point guard if you need him to play that position, but is more suited at the two guard, if not being a three. Dyson Daniels, of course, coming over from Australia, playing in the pro leagues over there, and I think he has a lot of upside, but right now is a really raw player that uses athleticism and defensive instinct to keep himself on the court. I hope that he can develop a little bit more of a jump shot, as his playmaking is very, very solid, just like another Australian, Josh Giddey, and I hope that he can stay on the right track here with all the drama with Zion this offseason and really put things together and have a strong sophomore season. I expect a lot out of him in this upcoming year. The next guy we're going to talk about is Jeremy Sohan, and I hear almost everybody comparing him to Dennis Rodman. I think it's just because of the number being on the Spurs with the hair. Rodman had that one season with a lot of rebounds next to David Robinson. However, I don't think that that's the case. I think that the best comparison for Jeremy Sohan is Horace Grant's brother, Harvey Grant. So Harvey Grant has a couple kids in the NBA. You might know them. We've got Jeremy Grant, Jerian Grant, and I believe that's the only Grants that I can think of off the top of my head. I think there's another brother that might have been in there, maybe some G League time, but I'm not 100% positive. Harvey Grant's a guy that was known for playing some great defense, a strong rebounder, but not the greatest in the league. Struggled at his jump shot, but was able to get a little something going on, and that's exactly what I'm seeing out of Jeremy Sohan. That's not a bad player. He played some solid time for the Washington Bullets and some other teams, and I really do think that that's what we're going to get out of Jeremy Sohan, which is a great rotation player. I don't think he's going to be a starter for years to come, but I think he's going to be that guy to do the nitty-gritty off the bench for you, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The 10th and 11th picks have played less games than the 12th pick combined, so let's just move on to the 12th guy. The 10th and 11th picks, of course, were Johnny Davis and Ousmane Dieng, who just haven't got enough playing time for me to make a real opinion on them yet. So the 12th pick is Jalen Williams, and that's little Jalen, Jalen. He is a great long guard, plays some great defense, a really good slasher, high percentage from the field, and once he gets a little bit more of a three ball and jumper, is going to be a really great player in this league. I compare him to Bobby Phills, who a lot of people don't know, but he did pass away at a very young age in the year of 2000. Bobby Phills played on teams like Cleveland and made a all-defensive team in 1996, which is where I see Jalen Williams going in very, very near future. I think that the similarities are almost uncanny here, and if you're unfamiliar with Bobby Phills' game, I definitely suggest that you go check that out as soon as you can. Get more familiar with him, because that's the guy that you're going to see Jalen Williams turn into very soon. I want to thank you if you made it to this part of the video. Lots more coming up on the channel. We'll try to keep up to date somewhat regularly on some current news, but I'd like to make some more of these videos with player comparisons, some more history, getting into more of that kind of thing. I do love making content here on the channel. I'm trying to upload as regularly as I can. You know, different things in life get in the way all the time. Schedule, trying to keep a personal life, but I'll try to keep you up to date. I'll try to keep the channel up to date, and I'll try to keep uploading some great content for you. So until next time, this is Court Chronicles, signing out.